You know, I was looking at a frequency list of English words the other day. Just the sheer number of times certain words pop up in conversation.
Oh, yeah. Let me guess. It's one of the tiny ones that causes massive headaches.
You nailed it. It's just 5 letters long, but honestly, the more I looked at it, the more I realized it's doing some serious heavy lifting.
I have a feeling I know exactly which word we're talking about today. Is it the word would?
It is absolutely would, and frankly, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, it really
Well,
is.
because, when you first start learning English, it seems simple enough, but then you hit that intermediate wall, and suddenly this word is just, it's everywhere.
Right.
And it seems to be doing like 5 different things at once. It's a time traveler, it's a politeness filter, it's I don't know, a dream machine.
The ultimate shapeshifter of the English language. That is a very fair assessment.
Yeah.
It's funny because native speakers don't even think about it. We just instinctively switch between these different modes. But if you are an intermediate learner trying to actually map it out, would is incredibly complex because it deals with reality, or rather, your distance from reality.
Right. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack in today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We aren't just going to list grammar rules because, well, that's boring and it honestly doesn't stick.
No, it never does.
We're going to look at the psychology behind this word. Why do we use it to be polite? How does it help us travel backwards in time? And most importantly, we're going to focus heavily on how you can tell the difference when someone says, I would go.
The classic trap.
Right. Does that mean they used to go in the past? Or that they want to go now but can't? That difference right there between a hypothetical situation and a past habit is what trips everyone up.
It really is the biggest stumbling block for learners. And by the end of this deep dive, our mission is for you to be able to hear would and instantly feel the context without having to, manually translate it in your head.
So let's start with the social side of things, because this is usually the first way people encounter would. It's the difference between sounding like a drill sergeant and sounding like a friend.
Precisely. It's the art of softening. In linguistics, we often talk about this concept of distancing.
Okay, distancing.
Yeah, when you want to be polite in English, you create a literal verbal distance between yourself and the person you're talking to.
Give me an example of that, because to me, distance sounds cold, but we're actually using it to be nice here.
Right. Okay. Think about a direct command. If I look at you right now and say, open the window or help me with this task, what is the immediate feeling you get?
It feels aggressive. It feels like I don't really have a choice. It's very immediate and right in my face.
Exactly. The imperative mood commands, it imposes your will directly onto the other person's reality. It's just too close. But when you add would, you are technically stepping into a hypothetical space.
Ah,
So saying, would you open the window, literally implies, would you open the window if you were willing?
oh, I see. So you're giving me this intense, albeit purely grammatical way out. You're pretending that my compliance is a choice, even if we both know I'm definitely going to open the window.
That's it.
Yeah.
You are respecting their autonomy by framing the request as a possibility, not a strict demand. That's why, would you like some coffee? Sounds so much more refined and welcoming than, do you want coffee? You're asking about their hypothetical desire rather than demanding a hard fact.
It's amazing how much social engineering is just packed into that one tiny auxiliary verb.
It really is.
But it's not just about asking for things, right? We also use it to express what we want ourselves, but in a way that feels a bit less, I don't know, grabby.
Yes, the preferences category. And I am so glad you brought this up because I think this is vastly underused by intermediate learners.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. This is where we get the phrase would rather.
Yeah.
And it's such a powerful tool for polite negotiation.
I use would rather constantly, usually to get out of things I just don't want to do.
Right.
Because if someone asks, hey, do you want to go to the cinema tonight? And I just say, no, I don't want to. I sound like a petulant child.
Exactly. I don't want to is a
Yeah.
door slamming shut in their face. But if you say, I would rather stay home tonight, you aren't just rejecting the cinema idea. You are actively proposing a preferred alternative. It's comparative.
It feels incredibly diplomatic. Saying, I would rather implies a choice was made between option A and option B, and I'm just politely choosing B. It's not a flat rejection of their idea.
Spot on. And we should give a few more examples of this because it's so useful. You can use it for tiny things like, I would rather order pizza than sushi.
Or in a work setting, I would rather we schedule this meeting for Tuesday.
Yes, perfect. And you can use would prefer in the exact same way. She would prefer tea instead of coffee.
It's a very soft way of asserting your boundaries.
It is. If you're in a tense business meeting, saying, I would prefer to discuss this later, is infinitely better than, no, let's talk later.
So would basically creates this polite, safe bubble where we can ask for things and state our preferences without ever being aggressive. That totally makes sense.
It does.
But now we have to break the laws of physics. We have to talk about time travel.
Ah, yes. The dreaded future in the past.
Even the name of that hurts my brain. Future in the past. Sounds like a bad sci-fi movie title.
It really does.
But I know this is crucial for reported speech. Can you break down what is actually happening mechanically here?
It's actually very logical once you visualize the timeline. So I want you to imagine you are standing in the past, say last Tuesday.
Okay, I'm on Tuesday.
On that Tuesday, you have a thought about your future. You think to yourself, I will call my mom.
Right. So on Tuesday, will is totally correct because the call hasn't happened yet relative to where I am.
Correct. But now it is today. Let's say today is Saturday. You were telling me about that specific thought you had back on Tuesday. You cannot say, I said I will call my mom, because that word will belongs to a future that has already passed. The whole timeline has shifted backward.
I see. So will has to shift backward too. It becomes would. So would is basically the ghost of will.
That is a very poetic way to put it, but yes, it's literally the past tense form of will. And this comes up constantly in storytelling or reporting what people said previously.
Like he promised he would help.
Yes. Or she knew the test would be difficult.
I think that's where I hear learners slip up the most, actually. They'll say something like, he said he will call me, but they are referring to a conversation from a year ago.
Right.
And as a native listener, it jars you. It feels like the timeline just snapped in half.
It does, because it confuses the listener about whether the call is still coming in the actual future or if it was supposed to happen in the past. Using would keeps the narrative consistent. It tells your listener, hey, we're looking at a future event, but from the perspective of the past.
Okay, so we've got our social would for politeness and preferences, and we have our time travel would for reported speech. Now I want to get into the really evocative stuff.
The storytelling.
Yes, because would isn't just for reported speech, it's for nostalgia.
This is honestly my personal favorite use of the word. We call this past habits. It's very distinct from just stating historical facts. It's about painting a vivid picture of a routine.
I was reading through some of the source materials on this, and the difference in the feeling it gives you is crazy. Like, you could say, I lived in Paris.
Yeah.
That's a fact. But if you say, when I lived in Paris, I would go to the bakery every morning, it feels completely different.
It does, doesn't it? I lived in Paris as a state. It's static. But I would go to the bakery is dynamic. It puts the listener right there in the street with you, watching the movie of your life.
Yeah.
It suggests that this wasn't just a one-time event. It was a ritual. It happened over and over again. Every summer, My grandfather would take us fishing.
Now, here is the big question, because we need to compare this. How is this different from used to? Right.
Because learners encounter used to pretty early on, I used to play tennis versus I would play tennis. Are they just interchangeable?
They are very close cousins, but they aren't identical twins. Used to is a bit heavier. It heavily emphasizes that the past is over. It contrasts the past with the present. So saying, I used to smoke strongly implies I do not smoke now.
Whereas would is just focused purely on the memory itself.
Exactly. Would is softer, it's more reminiscent. But there is a strict grammatical rule here that you absolutely must know. You cannot use would for states of being.
Oh, wait, really?
Yes, you can't say, I would have a car or I would live in New York.
I never actually realized that rule, but it sounds wrong when you say it. So I can say, I used to have a car, but not, I would have a car.
Correct. Because would in the storytelling context is strictly for action verbs. It's for the movie in your head, the things you actively did, not the things you owned or the way you were. You need used to for those static facts.
Okay, let me try one. My grandfather used to be a sailor. He would tell us stories about the sea. Brilliant. Yes, see the difference. Used to be establishes the static fact of his profession. Would tell is the repeated action that brings the memory to life.
That clicks. That is such a helpful distinction for intermediate learners trying to level up their narrative skills.
It really elevates how you sound.
Yeah.
But now we have to pivot to the fourth and perhaps most complex hat that would wears. We've looked at the past. Now we have to look at the impossible.
Hypotheticals, the dreamer mode.
The second conditional. This is where we use would to talk about things that are not real, or at least not real right now.
This is the classic if I won the lottery scenario.
Exactly. If I had more money, I would travel the world.
So what is would actually doing structurally here? Is it that distancing concept again?
It is. Remember how we talked about social distance for politeness? Well, this is reality distance.
Reality distance.
I like that.
You are signaling to the listener, I am describing a result that is entirely dependent on a condition that isn't true. The reality is, I don't have the money. So the traveling exists purely in the imaginary realm of would. And it's not just for grand fantasies, right? I mean, we use this for everyday excuses and complaints all the time. Like, I would help you, but I'm too busy.
Yes, that is a hidden conditional. The full sentence technically is, I would help you if I weren't so busy. We use this constantly to soften blows and explain why an action isn't happening. She would buy that house if it were cheaper. We would go to the beach if the weather were better.
Okay, so this brings us to the absolute core conflict, the main thing we really need to solve for our listeners today.
Let's do it.
We have past habits, which are real actions that happen repeatedly in the past, and we have hypotheticals, which are unreal things that are not happening right now.
And they both use the exact same word, would.
Right. And sometimes the sentences look terrifyingly similar. If I just hear the tiny snippet, I would swim, how on earth do I know if the person is reminiscing about their childhood summers or explaining why they aren't swimming in the lake right now?
This is where you have to put on your detective hat as a listener. Because you are right, the form, would, plus the base verb is identical in both cases. I would swim. The only way to unlock the true meaning is to look at the surrounding environment of the sentence.
Okay, let's break down the clues. What is clue number one?
Time markers. This is your absolute best friend for identifying past habits. If the speaker is talking about the past, they will almost always anchor it for you. Look for phrases like, when we were children in those days, every summer, or back then.
So if I say, when we were kids, we would swim in the river, that phrase, when we were kids, locks it into reality. It's a memory.
100%. The time marker overrides any hypothetical potential. It tells your brain, access the memory bank.
Okay, got it. And what is the primary clue for hypotheticals?
Conditions.
Yeah.
You were looking for the if or the but. You were looking for the barrier to reality.
So I would swim if the water wasn't so cold.
There it is. The condition, if the water wasn't so cold, instantly tells us that the swimming is not happening. It's a non-event caused by the temperature.
Let's try a tricky one, though. What if the context isn't neatly packaged in the same sentence? What if a friend just says to me, I would take the train?
That is tricky. If that is literally all you hear, you have to look at the broader conversation you're having. Are you two talking about their morning commute 10 years ago? Or are you currently discussing travel plans for tomorrow?
So if we are discussing a trip to London tomorrow and I say I would take the train, I'm probably implying a hidden condition like, I would take the train if I were you, or I would take the train, but it's too expensive.
Exactly. In a present or future context, would is almost always a hypothetical or a polite suggestion. I would take the train because it's faster. But if we're talking about your university years living in London back in the 90s, and you say, I would take the train, it means you habitually rode the train every day.
It really does force you to stop listening to words in total isolation and start listening to the whole picture.
That is the very essence of fluency. You aren't just decoding individual ciphers anymore. You are feeling the flow of the timeline and the context.
Let's do a quick lightning round just to make sure this really sticks. I'm going to throw a sentence at you and you tell me. Past habit meaning a real memory or hypothetical meaning an unreal dream?
All right, I'm ready. Bring it on.
Sentence 1. She would always bring cookies to the office on Fridays.
Past habit. The words always and on Fridays strongly suggest a routine in the past. It sounds like a fond memory of a former colleague.
Correct. Sentence 2. She would bring cookies, but she's on a strict diet.
Hypothetical. The word but introduces the reality block. Because of the diet, she is not bringing cookies.
Sentence 3. I knew he would succeed.
Trick question. That is future in the past. That is reported speech from a past perspective.
You got it. It's that timeline shift we talked about. Okay, last one. I would rather eat glass than call him.
That is preference.
Really?
A very extreme preference. But grammatically, it's a hypothetical structure used to show just how much you dislike the alternative option.
It's amazing, isn't it? Once you actually start looking for these patterns, you realize would is essentially a joystick for reality.
A joystick.
Yeah, you push it one way and you go back to the past, you push it another way and you go to a parallel universe, you pull it back and you just become incredibly polite.
That is a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
It really is a joystick. And for the listeners, the key takeaway here is not to get overwhelmed by all 5 of these hats,
Right.
but rather to realize they all share that common DNA of distance. Distance from rudeness, which gives us politeness and preferences. Distance from the present, which gives us past habits and future in the past. Or distance from reality, which gives us hypotheticals.
That makes it feel so much more manageable. It's all about where you are mentally standing relative to the action.
Exactly.
So here is a provocative thought to leave you with, and what I want everyone listening to do. Don't just go memorize a grammar table after this. I want you to actively try to spot this joystick out in the wild.
Yes.
The next time you are watching a movie in English or listening to a podcast interview, wait for that word would.
And when you hear it, ask yourself, is the speaker remembering something real? Or are they imagining something unreal? Or are they just trying to be polite?
Oh, once you start asking that question in real time, you stop translating, you stop hearing a confusing auxiliary verb, and you start seeing the actual scene the speaker is painting for you. It's literally like putting on 3D glasses for the English language.
And that is exactly when English starts to become fun. rather than just a massive puzzle you have to solve.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for breaking all of this down with me. I feel like I can finally look at wood without second-guessing myself.
My pleasure entirely. It's a powerful tool, so use it wisely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep listening, keep practicing, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. See you next time.